the Trajectron. This story dates back when I was a kid and I used to go to my hometown for my vacations. I used to hear about guns, and that is when, I thought, or I said to myself that, one day I want to be shooting a gun. But at that age, there are a lot of restrictions where we are not allowed to touch it, or we had to be with a licensed owner to handle a gun. So the desire kept growing in my mind, and then over a period of time, I left that. As I was doing my graduation, and thanks to access to internet, I started Googling about airguns, and I said that yes, I do have a chance. I can buy a gun, I can import a gun. But as I got into it, I saw that there were a lot of challenges if an individual wanted to own an airgun. Okay, he had to go through a lot of training. He had to get a membership, and then paying through international payments, getting the gun to India, clearing it from customs. All this took me at least a year of time. And then I said that I don't want a gun which I can just shoot out of the box. I wanted something which I can tinker with. Where does that thought come from? When I was a kid, there was not a single moving toy left in my house. I used to open up all the robots, all the clocks, take out the gears and try and make something more creative for me. But it was destruction for the world at that time. That is where this inspiration grew. I got my first gun. I started working on the mods of the gun. And then I said, no, I'm not happy with what I have. I need more to it. So I started writing to international machinists where they could make those parts for me. And the same process, it took about a year before I would get the parts from them. That is when I said that, let me give it a shot. I started learning with designing softwares, and I started making parts and getting it machined in India. Now there was a challenge there too, because if you would make one component, no machinist was interested in taking orders for it. So I had to go in batches for that. And when I made it in batches, I started selling the surplus. Now the roles had reversed. I was initially buying from abroad, but now we were selling our components abroad. One day I get a call from one of my dealers where we used to buy our air tanks. And he said, one of our VIP clients is trying to reach you. I said, I'm sorry, I missed his call, I'll get back to it. So I pick up the phone, I call up that number, and we had a chat for like 45 minutes. He said, you have such good exposure with guns, you've been making such beautiful parts, why aren't you manufacturing airguns? I said, I don't have a license. So why don't you apply for one? So I said, okay. And we hung up the phone. So I said, he was some Tom Dick Harry giving me bull talk. I just ignored that, hung up the phone. After 15 days, he called me again and asked me that, did you apply for the license? I said, no, I thought you were joking. He said, no, I'm very serious about that. I said, okay. So I hung up the call, and then I Googled Prahlad Kakar. I said, no, this isn't some Tom Dick Harry. He's a guy who can support you, can get you to the other side. So that was it, a couple of calls, and then we got started with the whole process of the gun. In 1 year's time, thanks to his unconditional support and backup that I had, and we had the license in hand. This was about 2018-19.
And that was the deal. So I dealt with the government, and I walked in with my hat and my cigar, and the government actually listened, strangely enough. So I don't know whether it was me, it was the hat, or it was the cigar. But altogether, it actually worked. We got a license in about a year and a half flat for the gun, and the rest is history. And the rest of the time, Pramod and Brian raised the funds for us to actually put up a factory, to hire all these young engineers who are so dedicated, and to see the vision of the gun, because there is no such weapon that has been made in this country ever, of this caliber, of this kind, of this precision, of such an international standard that we are so proud of it. So now let's do the honors and unveil the Virgin.
Please. Soldiers speak less, act more. So I'm sorry. I'll try to follow that dictum, say a few words, but I'm eagerly and itching to get on with the action part, which is the production, the precision, the proliferation of this gun as it goes out into the society. It's just about two years ago, and we were just sitting together, Pramod, Prahlad, Brian, Jackie, conceptualizing this. And it's amazing how in the last 2 years that this has built itself into a world-class product. And you'll be very, very proud that this is not only made in India, it's done at a time when shooting as a sport is peaking in India and internationally. Aside from that, I see a lot of uses of this gun, perhaps in the National Cadet Corps, perhaps in sport, in shooting ranges coming up, in shooting clubs, which is something which is quite